Hello, my name is Amber Hayward, and this is my final project for Foundations of Integrated Studies. So throughout this course, we were looking to answer the question, what is knowledge? And over the length of this course, we came to the conclusion that there is really no simple definition of knowledge, and that acquiring knowledge is a uniquely personal journey for everyone. But what the books that we read in this class provided were different methods and ways and perspectives on how to best develop our minds. So we learned that there's no singular way to gain knowledge. Every person has their own path. Through multidisciplinary study, we expand our worldview and strive towards an integrative perspective that cannot be directly measured but is nonetheless valuable to our personal development and our contributions to the world. Through improving our critical thinking and reasoning skills, we can analyze information without necessarily accepting it at face value in order to draw our own conclusions and develop novel ways of thinking about topics. The goal of integrated studies should be to teach us how to think, to step outside the box of traditional educational models, and learn to synthesize new information from various disciplines to create a holistic perspective. Equally as important to formal education is life experience. Integrated studies should help an individual make connections between their personal experience and the broader world. So I'm going to go through and talk about the 3 books that we read and what I kind of gleaned from each of them. The first book was Howard Gardner's 5 Minds for the Future, and this book talked about the 5 different aspects of a mind that one should really focus on in order to be a well-rounded, successful, and positive contribution to the world. So the first mind, of course, was a disciplined mind, in which case Howard Gardner is referring to someone who has studied extensively in one or more fields or trades, who has put a decent many years amount of time and continues to grow throughout their life within these fields. A synthesizing mind has the ability to take information and find what's important out of that information and bring it together in new ways, which is super important when we live in the information age where there's so much to choose from, and it's really important to be able to go over large amounts of information that is often conflicting or maybe misinformation and be able to critically think and draw our own conclusions. Creativity is, of course, the ability to create novel ideas or ways of expression, finding new meanings in things, which is often really not the main purpose of our traditional schooling, which is a lot of rote memorization and stuff like that. Creativity kind of breaks you out of that mind and says, how can I create something new, something different, something never seen before? And then while respect is more related to how you treat other people, and being able to treat everyone with an equal level of respect is very important in our kind of pluralistic world that we live in. And ethics is, of course, just having a strong backbone of morals and values that guide your life, that are non-negotiable in your dealings. And this is really important, especially in a society that is largely unethical. It's important to develop our own framework for what good ethics are in our world today. So a quote that I chose from this text is, "As a species, we human beings have impressive positive potentials, and history is replete with individuals who exemplify one or more of these kinds of minds. Education in the broadest sense should help more human beings realize the most impressive features of the most remarkable representatives of our species." Gardner, 19. So I chose this quote because I think it relates really well to sort of my understanding of the purpose of this class is to look at some major thinkers throughout history who did exemplify some of these really impressive human qualities, and be able to compare their perspectives and really see where they're coming from, where this discourse really has emerged. And I believe, that there is such great value in a course like this, where you're reading a lot of primary texts from different times in history, instead of just reading a textbook that's just kind of spouting off information and summarizing primary texts. It's really important to actually read these sort of things directly and to get an idea of how these great minds think, because just by reading other people's works when they have a very developed mind helps us to develop our own mind. So the next book that we read was Theaetetus. I'm still not sure on the pronunciation. And this was just a pretty long and pretty dense discourse trying to answer the question, what is knowledge? And by the end of the book, we still don't really understand what knowledge is. We realize that knowledge is not something easily definable. But throughout the course of this inquiry and this conversation, we're able to, we still gain our own knowledge. Even if we don't know what knowledge is, we have gained knowledge through reading this, because it shows us the importance of delving deep into these big questions, and the importance of reasoning and critical thinking in order to really have a deep understanding of things. So the quote that I chose is, "And so, Theaetetus, if ever in the future you should attempt to conceive or should succeed in conceiving other theories, they will be better ones as the result of this inquiry. And if you remain barren, your companions will find you gentler and less tiresome. You will be modest and not think you know what you don't know." And I thought this is around the end of the text, and it's so important because it really shows that the more you know, the more you know that you don't know, and that humility and understanding how little we actually know, even after a lifetime of study and inquiry, is so important to remain open-minded and skeptical and able to continue to take in new information throughout your life. And I think that this is a really beautiful quote and a really beautiful reminder that it's just very important to look very deeply into things. And it's not about finding this end goal solution or answer. It's about deepening ourselves and our understandings. And finally, we read Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, which is a classic, of course. And what I liked about this book, as opposed to the other two, is it brought in sort of a spiritual perspective, which I think is also very important when we're developing ourselves. And while the other two really emphasize the importance of education and book learning and discourse and mentorship with others, this book showed that also you can gain a lot of wisdom through your own life and your experiences, and through reflecting on your life and meditating on your life. And this emphasizes that there are many pathways to deep understanding, and some of them can't be found in a classroom. The quote I chose was, "I had to experience despair. I had to sink to the greatest mental depths, to thoughts of suicide, in order to experience grace, to hear Om again, to sleep deeply again, and to awaken refreshed again. I had to become a fool again in order to find Atman in myself. I had to sin in order to live again." And I chose this quote because I think it's really important, especially coming from like a college perspective, that there's also so much to be learned from just going out into the world and making your own mistakes and living your own life, and not letting any rules or imposed by society to really dictate your own journey. Obviously, I'm not condoning like serious crimes, but it's important to explore your world and your life. And there's so much that you can read in school that you really won't understand until you've lived through it yourself. And I can relate to this a lot personally as a non-traditional student who's returning to school after 12 years just living my life, living a pretty crazy life at that. So I can kind of like relate to this text in some ways, and just what you learn through hardship and struggle and direct experience is so important. So to bring it all together, each of the three authors had different perspectives on how to grow and develop one's mind and knowledge. Theaetetus and Siddhartha were both written in the past, but this message is timeless from both of their works. Five Minds for the Future brings a modern element and propels the young thinker into the future. Together, these books all work together to get us thinking differently, seeing the importance of personal growth, and illuminate knowledge as a lifelong journey of continuous discovery. My final closing questions are, how can these three distinct texts from three very different times and places in history all inform a modern student of how to deepen knowledge, develop their character, and maximize their potential? And how has this course provided a foundation for interdisciplinary study and shown us the importance of synthesizing information from various sources to draw our own conclusions? I can say personally that by reading all these texts really got my brain turning and thinking about things in new ways. And for that, I appreciate this course, and thank you for listening to my presentation.